Tory Sir Bill Cash lashed out at the bloc today after it published its guidelines for the next stage of talks. EU leaders want Britain to obey EU laws in full during any implementation period after Britain leaves in March 2019, while having no say on them. But Sir Bill, chairman of the European Scrutiny Committee, slammed the document during an urgent question in the Commons today. He asked how the government could reconcile its policy of leaving the EU with its own implementation proposals during the transition period. Parliament. TVSir Bill Cash lashed out at the transitionSir bill, said, given that we're leaving the EU and therefore the customs union, the single market and the provisions relating to freedom of movement, is the government going to reject this new EU ultimatum, including that the EU Court of Justice will continue to apply to the UK. He branded the document inconsistent with us leaving the European Union, to which we are entitled by demanding we remain in the customs union and single market while abiding by EU law and honouring the four freedoms. In response, Brexit Minister Robin Walker insisted the UK was leaving the EU in March 2019, and there would be a strictly time-limited implementation period, which will be as short as is practicable, but asked by other MPs for a guarantee the period would only last 2 years, Mr. Walker would only say he expected to be in that region. Parliament. TVSir Bill Cash called the terms an ultimatum. Walker said the UK was entering the negotiations seeking to protect its interests and to exit the EU in a smooth and orderly way. In angry scenes in Parliament, opposition Labour MPs hit out at the extraordinary infighting among Conservative MPs and claimed the government was giving in to Brexit ultras. Shadow Brexit Minister Paul Blomfield said a majority of MPs wanted a sensible approach to Brexit. He said, would the minister agree that it would be right to reach out to that majority instead of letting the European Research Group call the shots? In a brief meeting in Brussels today, the EU 27 gave their approval to new guidelines for chief Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier ahead of talks expected to conclude in March. Bulgarian Deputy Prime Minister Katerina Zahareva said afterwards, EU ministers have given a clear mandate to the Commission on what is the type of transition period that we envisage, full EU acquis to be applied in the UK and no participation in the EU institutions and decision-making. Get it? Government and EU differ over transition. The 27 adopted the text speedily today, and we hope an agreement on this with the UK can also be closed swiftly. Responding to the EU 27's guidelines, Theresa May's official spokesman said, we are pleased that the EU has now agreed its position, which is clearly well aligned with a proposal made by the Prime Minister in her Florence speech and which David Davis set out in more detail last Friday. But this will be a negotiation and there will naturally be some distance between the detail of our starting positions.